Next on the news.
Yes.
Students in Brooklyn are taking the migrant crisis into their own hands. The service initiative that's getting the attention of city leadership. Chaos and turmoil. Crews in Syria and Turkey race to save people after a devastating earthquake as death toll continues to climb. A call to action. The moves one Christian lawmaker wants to pursue as outrage builds over the Chinese spy balloon. Plus, the Pope's historic trip to Africa may be over, but the pontiff already has big ideas for his next visit. I'm Jessica Easthope. Currents News starts right now.
What happens to immigrants when shelters are full?
They ask the tough questions. The answer is complicated, but these students are taking the migrant crisis into their own hands. St. Xavier Catholic Academy's Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Club is stepping up, helping the soup kitchens and food pantries who are struggling to keep up with the influx of migrant families. They're living out their mission, and it's getting the attention of city leadership. These students are navigating a sea of brown paper bags. They're packed with snacks, water, and juice.
Granola bars, some fruit snacks.
And soon they'll be in the hands of a newly arrived migrant child.
These people that are coming in can be our neighbors and they could be our friends, and it's really important to welcome them with open arms and make sure that they feel welcome and loved and important to us because they are.
The students are members of St. Xavier Catholic Academy's Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Club. These bags are their latest service initiative. They asked students and their families to donate non-perishable food to pack and give to CHIPS, a soup kitchen and food pantry in Park Slope.
We want it to be like the whole school is like putting an effort into making these people's lives easier.
More than 42,000 migrants have settled in New York City since August. The amount of people CHIPS feeds every day has doubled. It can't keep up with the need. And the students are putting themselves in the migrants' shoes.
Those people have struggled a lot for like long journeys and just other things getting to the point where they are, so it feels good to like be giving back.
And now their service is getting the attention of city leadership. On Friday, Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, Miguel Santana, came to speak with the students about the migrant crisis. They had burning questions about why migrants come, where they will live, and how they can help.
At a young age to be so civically engaged, it says a lot. I mean, obviously, they're grounded. They have certain principles. They have certain values that I think they're bringing to the table, not only from home, but also what they're learning in school.
Principal Susan Walsh says the initiative is their Catholic education at work.
They come up with all these initiatives themselves, and they're really living their Catholic faith. They actually see their service at work, and so it's good for them to make the connection as kids that there's people out there that don't have as much as we do, and they're really working to build a better community. It's very civic-minded, and that's what we're trying to teach them.
And the 500 bags that were packed and decorated by students were delivered to CHIPS on Tuesday. And you too can help the people at CHIPS. Just visit chipsonline.org and click on donate. From the migrants in New York City to those calling Canada their new home, a number of them are taking buses at Port Authority and heading north after being given the option by the National Guard. The country's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is welcoming them into the country that's experiencing an extreme labor shortage. One bus driver believes about 100 people a day are being taken up north. As of last week, more than 42,000 migrants have settled in New York. Remember the man who threw a wrench at Cardinal Dolan's front door at St. Patrick's Cathedral back in October? Well, he's under arrest again, this time for targeting yet another church in Queens. The glass door at Grace Lutheran Church was slightly damaged. It's that man, Juan Velez's 19th arrest. He's being charged with a hate crime. Velez was previously arrested for that incident at St. Patrick's Cathedral and for causing damage at 2 other churches. Police say Velez could be responsible for at least one other incident. Turkey and Syria in a state of emergency after a deadly 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit before dawn Monday. Thousands of people are dead after some neighborhoods were left completely destroyed. The center of that deadly shock, the province of Gaziantep in southeastern Turkey, the shocks stretching to northwestern Syria and as far away as Lebanon and Israel. And just a few hours later, on the same fault line, a second major quake hit, that one a 7.5 magnitude shock, about 60 miles north of the first. Search and rescue efforts are underway. Survivors young and old are still being pulled from the rubble more than 24 hours later. The death toll now stands at more than 7,000 people. The World Health Organization is warning that number could rise to 20,000 as ongoing search efforts continue. But amid the death and destruction, a miracle and an international community banding together. From under the dust and rubble, a small hand reaches out. Volunteer white helmet rescuers pulling out a boy from the debris, alive. The catastrophic 7.8 magnitude earthquake hitting Syria and Turkey, collapsing buildings. As people slept in bed, teams of structural engineers, soldiers, paramedics, and trained search dogs are working around the clock, fighting the massive destruction and the freezing cold temperatures.
We need help, we need support, from immediate support from anyone who can support.
And the international community has been sending out that help in droves, from prayers from the Pope for the lives lost, to the aid arriving from more than 24 countries. From the United States, a Virginia task force, which includes a team of 79 members and 6 dogs, are gearing up to go along with 80 members of the Los Angeles Fire Department's urban search and rescue team. Also lending their aid, the European Union, the Red Cross, and the United Nations, who have coordinated and deployed 13 teams from around the world, with 39 more on the way.
Let's work together in solidarity to assist all those hit by this disaster, many of whom were already in dire need of humanitarian aid.
Many towns and communities with a significant Christian population, such as Aleppo, were also affected. And Aid to the Church in Need has confirmed that some Christians were killed or hurt in the quake. One of those includes a priest who died when the residence of the Melkite Archbishop of Aleppo collapsed. That archbishop himself is in the hospital in stable condition. The offices of the papal charity Caritas were also devastated in Turkey. The president of the Syrian branch of Caritas had this to say following the earthquake. Quote, "Let us hope the earthquake shakes open the hearts of the international communities and all the world leaders so that they help Syria and do not forget the people who are suffering. The population is in a state of absolute despair and anguish. There are people wandering through the streets, not knowing where to go and desperately searching for family and friends. Many people have died or are missing." If you want to help those who are devastated by the earthquake, just go to caritas.org/earthquake-Syria-Turkey to donate. And in Brooklyn, Catholics are also working hard to help in the efforts in Turkey and Syria. Bishop Gregory Mansour of the Eparchy of St. Maron Church in Brooklyn is setting up a fundraiser for those affected by the devastation. Bishop Mansour spoke with Currents News and explained the importance of donating to this cause.
It's a beautiful effort that the churches here and people here are making to support them in their great time of need. I know that we have 3 Maronite bishops, one in Damascus. He had structural damage in many of his places. And another bishop in Latakia and the other bishop in Aleppo. Brooklyn has been on the leading edge always in first to serve the poor, first to serve not just in Brooklyn, but overseas. So I'd be very glad to work with anybody. We started our own fundraising. We're able to send money through the 3 bishops there, three Maronite bishops there. So anybody who wants to help, we'll have something on our website later today and on our Facebook page.
Bishop Mansour further explained that while Christianity is a minority religion in these countries, people of faith and Catholic organizations are always rolling up their sleeves to help in times of trouble, something that has earned them respect from non-Christian communities. If you want to donate to Bishop Mansour's fundraiser, just go to stmarons.org for more information. There's a lot more news headed your way. Enough is enough. The strong words one Catholic lawmaker has to say about China and the threats the government is making after its balloon was shot down. Plus, the push to ban TikTok and the number of Americans it can impact. The Pope's historical visit to Africa may be over, but he's already planning another papal trip. We'll tell you where.
Currents News is there.
The first March for Life since Roe v. Wade was overturned.
People kept coming in and coming in. There was a really big celebration atmosphere.
The March for Life. From Brooklyn.
What parishes do we have here?
St. Mark's,
Immaculate Heart of Mary.
To Washington.
This generation has a lot of eyes on them, and so if we come out and show support and stand firm, hopefully change will be made in the future.
And the work that lies ahead.
Transform the culture.
When news happens, Currents News is there. Also tonight, tensions rising between the United States and China.
The PRC knows precisely what this was. The PRC knows precisely why this was in our airspace.
Threats are being made, with both sides inflating the reasons for blame. Right now on Currents News, a superpower standoff.
China's foreign ministry spokesperson said the government will, quote, safeguard its legitimate rights and interests after the U.S. shot down a suspected spy balloon, while relations between the United States and China continue to deteriorate. As Ivan Rodriguez tells us, as crews are evaluating the balloon's debris, a second one has been spotted over Latin America.
U.S. Navy divers, along with unmanned vessels, are working to recover debris from the suspected Chinese spy balloon shot down over the Atlantic Ocean on Saturday after it made its way across the continental U.S. Some critics say it took too long for the Biden administration to shoot down the balloon that was seen floating across the U.S. for days.
Were we confident there was not a nuclear weapon in that payload? Were we confident it wasn't carrying biological weapons, pathogens, or toxins?
But others, including defense officials and the White House, say it was necessary to wait until it was over open water, since the amount of damage it could cause on the ground was unknown.
There's just immense intelligence value in having this thing brought down over water where we can salvage it in a more, hopefully, complete fashion.
Meanwhile, China is urging calm and called destroying the balloon an overreaction, maintaining it was a civilian research vessel. At the same time, they acknowledged on Monday that a similar balloon floating over Latin America is theirs as well, claiming it was conducting flight tests but deviated from its course by mistake. While this latest act of suspected spying will have diplomatic ramifications between Washington and Beijing, the Pentagon says it isn't the first time.
During the Trump administration, at least 3 times, these observation balloons transited the U.S. territory.
Ivan Rodriguez, Currents News.
Catholic lawmaker Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey is ready to take a stand against the Communist Party. He said, quote, "It is long past time that we as a nation have a more frank and sober conversation about the challenges and the costs of a strategic competition with China. Communist dictatorship that brutally abuses, tortures, and kills its own people cannot be trusted or appeased." A way to spy amid rising tensions between 2 countries. You may think I'm still talking about the balloon, but actually I'm referencing an incident with a U-2 spy plane. It was a tense moment in 1960 during the Cold War. The Soviets shot down the U.S. plane with ground missiles, which surprised the U.S. To cover it up, the White House said it was a plane to track weather. But when the Soviet premier showed the wreckage and captured pilot, President Eisenhower apologized and suspended future flights. And while all of this is going on, lawmakers are turning up the heat, saying time is up for the social media platform TikTok. The reason? Its connection to the Chinese government. Republicans and some Democrats in Congress want a national ban on the app. Legislation is already being pushed. They're concerned it can access data on Americans and persuade them on some political topics. And the director of the FBI says TikTok poses, quote, national security concerns. Let's break TikTok down by the numbers and show how dominant it's been in the United States. The app has been downloaded 210 million times. There are 138 million active monthly users, and the age group of Americans that use it the most are between 10 and 30 years old. And as lawmakers weigh the future of TikTok, President Biden is getting set to deliver the State of the Union address. As Karen Kafer reports, he has a lot to talk about, including his possible campaign plans for 2024.
With Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy seated behind him, President Joe Biden plans to highlight the things he views as his administration's accomplishments to distinguish his Democratic Party in tonight's State of the Union address.
I want to talk to the American people and let them know the state of affairs, what's going on, what I'm looking forward to working on from this point on, what we've done.
He is expected to make a call on Republicans to swiftly raise the nation's debt ceiling to avoid a devastating default that would crash an economy with a strong labor market and cooling inflation.
It's not a negotiable item. It's Congress's constitutional obligation.
With invited guests like the family of Tyree Nichols, the black man fatally beaten by Memphis police officers, the president is expected to address police reform and gun violence after a spate of U.S. mass shootings to start the year. Internationally, he'll likely address support for Ukraine, just shy of 1 year into its invasion by Russia, and fresh tensions with China as Republicans criticize his administration's handling of a suspected surveillance balloon the U.S. shot down over the Atlantic Ocean this weekend.
What are we going to do the next time this happens? Are we going to allow it to fly through here again and shoot it down once again to the East Coast? I mean, these are questions the White House needs to answer.
This will be Biden's final State of the Union address before he makes a public decision about a re-election bid. And 2024 presidential primary campaigns ramp up. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
And the person giving the Republicans' response to the State of the Union, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Bishop Robert Brennan celebrated Mass at his alma mater this weekend. Bishop Brennan spent time with students at St. John's University. He told them that the school was a big part of his life and jokingly added that he graduated way back in the 80s. And while delivering his homily, the bishop went out of his way to emphasize that he's there to help the student body.
I have a responsibility to serve you. I need to be able to serve you. And at the very least, I want to be able to walk with you. So I hope, and I'm glad for the opportunity. I appreciate Father Shanley and the Vincentians and the whole team here at St. John's, that open invitation, that warm welcome that I feel here so that I can be part of this St. John's community. So proud of all of you and glad to walk the journey with you.
The bishop finished his day at St. John's with dinner with the students. And that wasn't the only notable dinner the bishop attended recently. He, along with others, celebrated 123 years of the Cathedral Club. It's one of the most prestigious groups in the Diocese of Brooklyn. For well over a century, the lay organization has promoted the Catholic faith and provided students with scholarships. The annual dinner helps raise money in support of Catholic education. Despite all the great work the group has already done, Bishop Brennan believes there's a lot more potential.
What we want to do is build up our own sense of Eucharistic thinking, really try to build on a culture in the church that recognizes the holiness of everyday life. And if I can help strengthen that among our people, like in the Cathedral Club, who are very connected, who are deeply living their faith, but then they're out in professions where the church needs to be.
Bishop Brennan added the church needs more Catholic witnesses out and about in the world to become missionaries. Still to come on Currents News, we'll look back at Pope Francis's historic trip to Africa and what he has to say about the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And LeBron who? The 7th grader who made magic on the basketball court. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Pope Francis has finished his long-anticipated trip to Africa, and even though the Holy Father is no longer in South Sudan, he still made headlines on the way back to the Vatican, accusing critics of instrumentalizing the recent death of Pope Benedict XVI during his press conference on the papal plane.
Credo che la morte di Benedetto è stata strumentalizzata per gente che vuol portare l'acqua al proprio mulino, no? Quella gente non ha etica, è gente di partito, non di chiesa.
Elise Allen, senior correspondent for Crux, was on that papal plane. She spoke to Currents News about the meaning behind the Holy Father's comments regarding the Pope Emeritus's funeral.
He's really responding to, or sort of, a slew of books and articles that came out after, Pope Benedict XVI, the Emeritus Pope, had died on December 31st. In the wake of his passing, really a lot of material was published containing what were old interviews with people close to him, or people seen as maybe ideologically more in line with maybe Benedict's position versus maybe some of Francis's more progressive stance. And Francis basically said, this was an instrumentalization. The people who published these things, and the fact that they did it then, at Benedict's passing, was really an instrumentalization of Benedict and of his death. And he said, really, to do that, the people who would do that to such a holy man don't have any ethics, is what he said. So it was a pretty strong statement, because it was unethical.
Also during the conference, journalists asked the pontiff if he would make the same plea for peace between Russia and Ukraine that he made between African leaders who were at odds in 2019. The Holy Father's response, "I am open to meeting with both leaders." On top of a possible trip to Russia and Ukraine, the Pope also announced some other travel plans, saying he's looking to visit India next year and possibly Mongolia later in 2023. In addition to these two ventures, the Pope confirmed he will be in Lisbon, Portugal for World Youth Day in August and a meeting of Mediterranean bishops in France in September. Be sure to follow Currents News and the tablet for full coverage of the Pope's trips around the world. And finally tonight, a Catholic student showed off his shooting skills at a basketball game in North Dakota. Seventh grader J.J. Franks scored a layup, free throw, three-point shot, and a half-court shot at a Bishop Ryan Catholic school game, and it happened all within 25 seconds. The seventh grader was competing in a Gatorade halftime shootout that won him 10 grand. He says he plans to save that money for college. And that is Currents News. I'm Jessica Easthope. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Before we go, let's take a look back at the Pope's historical trip through Africa. Hope to see you again next time.